Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. Over the last 24 hours, the UFC has announced three massive women's MMA fights, all within the women's flyweight division. You have Taila Santos versus Erin Blanchfield on August 26th in Singapore. Then you have Rose Namajunas versus Manon Fiorot in Paris on September 2nd. And then you also have Alex Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko 2 on September 16th at the T-Mobile Arena, the headliner of a UFC Fight Night card. And I figured since they were all announced in the last, 12, 24 hours, and they're all in the same weight class, and I have a theory for why the UFC is doing this, and I think this is a game plan they've kind of come up with in the last, week or two. I wanted to make a video. I'm going to give my reaction, my early prediction for each one of these fights. And the way I'm going to go through these fights, I'm going to save the best for last. So this is going to be my opinion. I'm going to go from least compelling to most compelling. And I think it's going to shock a lot of you guys what order I go in. And also, I'm going to talk about at the end of the video kind of a theory I have going on behind the scenes with the UFC regarding these three fight announcements. So starting off, the first fight, which is the least compelling to me on the list, and I think it's actually going to shock a lot of people, and that is Alex Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko 2. This takes place on September 16th in the T-Mobile Arena. This will be 1 week after UFC 293. A lot of people were kind of confused when they, were deciding they were going to use the T-Mobile Arena on September 16th. People were wondering what's going on, considering it's a week after a pay-per-view. They're doing a big fight night card for Mexican Independence Day, and they're going to have Alexa Grasso defend her title against Valentina Shevchenko, and I think they're going to stack this card. So you can get excited for September 16th. I'm not sure who else they're going to put on this card, but don't be shocked, maybe, just maybe. I think this is a bit of a stretch. But maybe if Brandon Moreno wins at UFC 290, you could see them maybe put him on this card as well. Maybe he defends against Amir Albazi. That wouldn't be a massive title fight to lose. And they could stack this fight night card with two title fights for Mexican Independence Day. And you would have Brandon Moreno on the card as well. But initial reaction to this, honestly, after that first fight, I know we had the shocking ending, but the fight wasn't all that compelling for me. I mean, Valentina Shevchenko, I know a lot of people love her, and I know she's an elite fighter, but she's kind of become stale to me. I feel like, and maybe she's going to be re-injuvenated after this loss to Alexa Grasso. But for me, it's almost like she's been coasting through her last few fights, and it's like she became complacent. And maybe, just maybe, Alexa Grasso woke it up, by beating her and dethroning her. Maybe Shevchenko's like, oh my goodness, I got to get re-motivated. But for me, after that first fight, I know Grasso got the finish in the fourth round. I know she got the rear naked choke. But if Shevchenko doesn't spin in that fourth round, I mean, she wins via decision. She wins a very boring decision. So I think Shevchenko is going to come into this fight. I think she's going to take her more seriously, but I think she's going to fight super technical. I think she's going to fight super safe. And I just think she's going to try to regain her belt. And I think it's not going to be a particularly exciting fight. I know Grasso has great boxing. And obviously she has good submission skills. And obviously she has killer instinct, because once she jumped on that back, she started looking for that rear naked choke. And, it was almost towards the end of the round. There was 30, 40 seconds left. But Shevchenko couldn't keep her off her neck for long enough to be able to survive the round, and she loses. And don't get me wrong, that's a compelling storyline. When a dominant champion, considering Valentina Shevchenko hadn't lost, since all the way back in 2017, and she won the title back at UFC 231 in December of 2018. It was crazy to see her lose. She's on this long winning streak, and nobody expected Grasso to win, and Grasso pulled it off at UFC 285, and now they're rematching. And I think having a rematch after a dominant champion loses is always intriguing, because you never know what could happen in the rematch. Is Grasso gonna make those adjustments? And Shevchenko, maybe she's just getting older and starting to slow down, and Grasso kind of has her number, and now Shevchenko's confidence isn't there, and she's 35 years old, going on 36 years old. And maybe Grasso pulls it out again. But for an early prediction, I think Valentina Shevchenko is going to win this fight. I think she's going to be super conservative. I think she's going to be super technical. I think she's going to fight from the outside. I think she's going to mix in her wrestling. And I think she gets it done against Alexa Grasso. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is a good fight. Honestly, I was rooting for Alexa Grasso in the first fight. But I just think Valentina Shevchenko, I'm not going to say it was a fluke, but Valentina Shevchenko made a massive mistake giving up her back. Why are you throwing spinning techniques when someone's 6 inches from your face? And in the fourth round of a fight you're winning, it's almost the end of that fourth round. And she made a mistake. She paid for it. She lost her title. But I don't think lightning is going to strike twice. I don't think Alexa Grasso gets it done. I don't think she can go out there and just outbox her, I don't think she can go out there and win a decision. I think she's going to lose. I think she can get taken down. I think she can get outstruck from range. And I don't see this fight being like crazy competitive, but it is a very interesting storyline. I hope they stack this card, and I am happy. And I am looking forward to this fight. I am happy that they're putting a title fight as the main event of a UFC Fight Night card. And I hope Grasso's able to go out there and put on a super competitive matchup and maybe even win, because I feel like she's kind of rejuvenated that division. Even though women's flyweight's a good division, I feel like Shevchenko just being at the top of it, coasting, I feel like, she was kind of like making the division a little bit stale. She almost lost to Taila Santos, who we're also going to talk about in this video. But early prediction, I'm going Valentina Shevchenko via decision. Moving on to the next fight I want to discuss, and that is Rose Namajunas versus Manon Fiorot. This will be September 2nd in Paris. This actually caught me off guard, completely off guard. Why is Rose Namajunas moving up to flyweight? This doesn't make any sense. Rose hasn't fought since November 6th of 2021 at UFC 268 when she beat Weili Zhang via split decision. I know somebody out there's typing up a comment right now. Joey, she fought Carla Esparza at UFC 274 back in May of 2022. I didn't see a fight. All I can say is, ew. That was a horrible fight. That was a non-existent fight. I don't remember anybody throwing any strikes. I watched that fight twice. It was horrible. It did not exist. They were just two girls staring at each other across the cage. I'm so happy that Rose lost that fight. She deserved to lose. To put on a shit-stained performance in the capacity she did at UFC 274. And then at the end, when the horn sounds for the 5th round, to run around with your hands up in the air like you put on a phenomenal performance was the most embarrassing performance I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm glad Rose Namajunas is no longer champion. I'm glad Carla Esparza lost the belt, got absolutely smashed by Weili Zhang. And I don't consider that a fight. So she last fought in November 2021. So she's been out for a while. Even if you want to go off the Carla Esparza fight, she's been out for well over a year at this point. And now she's not even returning till September. Honestly, up until this fight was announced, I thought Rose Namajunas, she's had psychological issues. She's been in a weird spot throughout her career talking about retirement. I thought we may never see Rose Namajunas again. I thought maybe she was just going to disappear off with Pat Barry, and we were never going to hear from Rose Namajunas again. She was never going to fight in the UFC. And it's kind of weird that she's going to return to flyweight. That just doesn't make any sense, considering Weili Zhang is now the champion. Rose Namajunas, the UFC likes Rose Namajunas as a promotable fighter. There's a lot of weird simps for Rose, even though that's bizarre to me. But she has 2 wins over the current champion. Now she's moving up a weight class to take on Manon Fiorot. And Manon is on a crazy win streak. I mean, she lost her debut in MMA, but has not lost since. So she's on a 10-fight winning streak. She beat Caitlin Chukagian back at UFC 280. And Manon Fiorot has kind of been, was probably going to be the next #1 contender had Shevchenko be able to beat Grasso at UFC 285. And now she's taking on Rose Namajunas. And I think this is a great matchup for Manon Fiorot. I mean, win or lose, but I think if she can go out there and get a win over a name like Rose, even though Rose is moving up a weight class to flyweight from strawweight, which kind of makes no sense because it's not like she's a massive strawweight. If Manon, who is relatively unknown, I mean, the hardcores know her, but if she can go out there and let's say she puts a beating on Rose Namajunas, she kind of elevates her name in the MMA community. And she puts herself in a good position to be in title contention for that women's flyweight title. And also, it's right around the same time. It is right around the same time that we're getting Alex Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. It's 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks before the title fight. So if she goes out there and puts on an incredible performance, she may be next in line, depending on what happens in the last fight we're going to talk about in this video. And Rose, because she has a name, because she's a former champion, if she goes out there and beats Manon Fiorot and beats her in impressive fashion, if you look at the rankings currently right now, Manon Fiorot is sitting up there in the rankings. She's number 2 in the women's flyweight rankings. So if Rose goes out there and beats her, she's right in title contention herself. The UFC, it wouldn't shock me if the UFC gives her a title fight. Imagine if Grasso beats Shevchenko in the rematch and then Rose beats Manon Fiorot. I think they'll give Rose the next title shot, honestly. In my mind, I think that's what they would do. So you'd have Grasso versus Namajunas for the women's flyweight title, and that would kind of re-injuvenate the division. But I just think, you look at, when I think of strawweights moving up to flyweight, I think of when Joanna Jędrzejczyk tried to move up and challenge Valentina Shevchenko for the flyweight title. It didn't turn out well. And I just think Rose Namajunas is too small for the weight class. Manon Fiorot is very good. great striking, very technical, has decent power. It's not like she's like a crazy finisher, but of her 10 wins, she has 6 by knockout. And she beat Katlyn Chookagian in her last fight. And say what you will about Katlyn Chookagian, she's a very good fighter. She's just, you know, can't get over the hump and can't beat somebody who's the elite of the elite like Valentina Shevchenko. And Manon Fiorot went out there and beat her. I think she's going to beat Rose Namajunas. My early prediction, I think Manon Fiorot is going to beat Rose Namajunas. I think she may even stop her via TKO. I just don't think Rose Namajunas' head is in the right place. She's been out. She's going to be out roughly a year and a half, actually, by the time she fights. But really, if you want to go back to her actual last fight, which was actually at UFC 268, where she actually fought against Weili Zhang, she's going to be out for close to 2 years by the time she fights Manon Fiorot. And she's moving up a weight class. She's going to be at a size disadvantage. She's going to be at a power disadvantage. And I think Manon Fiorot is going to go out there. I'm going to say like a second or third round TKO. I don't think Rose Namajunas' head is in it. I don't even know if she wants to fight anymore. At this point, I think Pat Barry might be forcing her to go out there and fight. But this is a great fight. This is a great fight for a UFC Fight Night card in Paris. It has stakes in the division. The main event is Cyril Gane versus Sergey Spivak, which is a great main event. I think this is probably going to be the co-main event, would be my guess. And this is a good fight. I'm looking forward to this matchup. It's a little bit strange just because I didn't expect Namajunas to return and move up a weight class. But nonetheless, it's going to be a fun fight. Women's flyweight division is looking pretty good, especially with all these matchups that have been announced. Now, moving on to the last fight I'm going to talk about in this video. And for me, this is the most compelling fight of the 3, which may be surprising to a lot of you guys. You have to let me know down in the comments which of these 3 fights is most compelling to you. Which of these 3 fights are you most excited for? But we have Taila Santos versus Erin Blanchfield. This will be August 26th in Singapore. I'm wondering if this will be the co-main event. The main event for this card is Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie, which I absolutely hate. I did a reaction video to that fight as well. If you guys want to check it out, I'll link it down in the description. But I love this matchup. This is a great fight for the women's flyweight division. I mean, Taila Santos sitting at number 3. Blanchfield sitting at number 4. And Taila Santos, she hasn't fought since UFC 275, June of 2022, where she almost dethroned Valentina Shevchenko. She lost via split decision. I thought Valentina Shevchenko won, but just barely. And I thought I wouldn't have had a problem with them giving Santos the decision. And Santos went out there and out-grappled Valentina Shevchenko. You know, Shevchenko did landed some shots off her back, and then I can't remember, in some rounds, I think she was able to keep it on the feet and keep it standing and land some shots, and she won the fight ultimately. A lot of people thought Santos dethroned her in that fight. And she hasn't fought since. She suffered an injury. She was supposed to fight Erin Blanchfield earlier this year. She pulled out of that fight. Jessica Andrade stepped in against Erin Blanchfield. This was back in February of 2023, so February of this year. Erin Blanchfield just ran through Jessica Andrade. I have been a big believer in Erin Blanchfield. I did a video at the beginning of the year of who I believe will be champion by the end of the year in each division. I picked Erin Blanchfield. Now, for some reason, when this fight got switched initially, I had Erin Blanchfield, but for some reason, I switched to Jessica Andrade in my prediction. I regret that. She went out there, submitted her in the second round. She actually looked good on the feet with Jessica Andrade. She didn't look amazing, but she didn't have to look amazing because she mixed in the grappling, was able to get the finish, and absolutely dominated Jessica Andrade. What you only see, really, Jessica Andrade only really loses to the elite of the elite. And I know Jessica Andrade was technically up a weight class, but Erin Blanchfield looked incredible. She's on this long winning streak. I believe it's an 8-fight winning streak she's on right now. She absolutely dogged Molly McCann back at UFC 281. People thought Molly McCann had a chance. That was laughable. Went out there, dominated her, finished her. Went out there, dominated Jessica Andrade. She's on a 3-fight finish streak, all via submission, rear naked choke, Kimura, and guillotine. And she's looked so good. And a lot of people think she's the future of the women's flyweight division. And I just think, you know, for as much as people crap on women's MMA, I think Taila Santos versus Erin Blanchfield is a great fight. And that's why it's my most compelling fight. I think both girls are really good. Both girls are really good grapplers. Both girls are exciting to watch. Both girls have good cardio, can go 5 rounds, or at least can go long in fights. Erin Blanchfield technically has never gone 5 rounds. She's only gone 3 rounds. But she's never really looked gassed in a 3-round fight. She's went out there, used her grappling. And I honestly think this is a great women's fight. I think this is a high-level women's fight. I think either one of these women could be the future of the division, could be a future champ. I think either one of these, whether it's Santos or Blanchfield, could beat Shevchenko or Grasso, whoever comes out on top in that fight. And honestly, I think the winner of Santos versus Blanchfield should be for the #1 contender fight. It should be the winner of Santos versus Blanchfield fights the winner of Grasso versus Shevchenko too. I think that's the way it should play out. but I don't know, because maybe if Namajunas sneaks out a win against Fior, maybe she jumps into contention and steals the title shot away. But I think if Erin Blanchfield goes out there and puts on a good performance against Taila Santos and maybe gets another finish, how can you deny Blanchfield? How can you deny her a title shot? I don't think you can. I think you have to give her a title shot. And, I do have one gripe about this, because you look at this fight, it's August 26th in Singapore. It's definitely not the main event, because we know Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie's main event. Why don't we have fights like this as women's main events? We're getting Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill in the UFC Apex main events. You would not see me complaining with a Taila Santos versus Erin Blanchfield main event for a UFC Fight Night card. This is a great women's fight. So why does the UFC do this? They give us garbage women MMA fights for Apex main events, but they can't give us a good women's MMA fight as a main event. Instead, they got to put it as like maybe a co-main event on a Singapore card that's going on at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I think. I don't know why they do this, but nonetheless, this is a great fight. In terms of an early prediction, Santos is such a good grappler, and so is Blanchfield. So I'm wondering if the grappling is going to cancel each other out. If it does, I still favor Blanchfield. I think she's got a little bit better striking, but this is a very tough fight to pick. I got to dig a little bit deeper into this fight. But I actually think Erin Blanchfield could out-grapple Taila Santos. I'm very high on Erin Blanchfield's grappling. So I'm going to go Erin Blanchfield to win this fight. I think it's going to be a hard-fought fight. I think she's going to win via decision. But I think Erin Blanchfield, she goes out there and out-grapples Taila Santos. I'm picking Erin Blanchfield against Grasso. I'm picking Erin Blanchfield against Valentina Shevchenko easily. Because think about it, Santos went out there and out-grappled Shevchenko. So if Blanchfield can go out there and out-grapple Santos, I know MMA math doesn't always work, but I think Blanchfield would have the grappling to out-grapple somebody like Valentina Shevchenko, who, if anything, is stagnating, maybe on the decline. So I'm going Erin Blanchfield to beat Taila Santos, and I think that's the most compelling of the 3 of these fights. But what I really think is going on here is I think the UFC had a wake-up call. I think at UFC 289, you had Amanda Nunes retire. The women's featherweight division's obliterated. It's gone. It never really existed, to be honest. And the UFC's looking at the women's bantamweight division. They're realizing, look, we haven't invested in this division because we just knew Nunes is on top. Nunes is kind of the champion. We don't really need to build future contenders. I mean, the women's bantamweight division has been stagnating since Ronda Rousey left in 2016. And I know technically she had a fight after that in 2017, but you get my point. She left in 2016, 2017. She fought Nunes, I think, in December 2017. But since Ronda lost to home, there has been a void there. And the UFC hasn't really tried to invest in building new contenders. And I think when Amanda Nunes retired and kind of left these divisions up in the air, and I know this doesn't have to do with the flyweight division, I think the UFC kind of got a wake-up call, and they were like, you know what, we really got to start making some of these really good fights in some of the women's divisions, and we really got to start investing and promoting some of these girls and trying to build up some of these divisions. And the women's flyweight division is looking incredible. I think, I've always said the women's strawweight division is probably the best division. I'm starting to think it's the women's flyweight division, honestly. These are 3 great fights. I would have no problem if they did like a UFC Fight Night card and put all 3 of these fights on it. I would love that, to have, all these women who are in the same weight class fighting on the same card. But I really think the UFC kind of had a wake-up call. And I think they're going to start investing more. And I know people aren't going to want to hear this because a lot of people just say, I hate it women's MMA. Put it on a different card. But if you have elite level women's fighters, it's enjoyable to watch. I mean, who didn't love watching Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk? Both times were incredible fights. The first fight was one of the best MMA fights I've ever seen. If you haven't seen Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk 1, you must go see that immediately. Go watch it immediately. So I think the UFC is going to try to build up some of these divisions. I think they're going to be investing more in these divisions. I think they're going to try to sign more talent for women's bantamweight. I think they're going to try to build up flyweight, build up strawweight. I think they're going to put more thought towards these divisions. Now that they realize, look, Shevchenko is going to be gone soon enough too. She's 35 years old. We got to start building up and kind of building some names here. And I almost think that's kind of what they're doing with Fior. I think they're like, okay, well, we can sacrifice Namajunas, whose head really isn't in the game. She's probably coming close to retirement soon. And if Fior goes out there and beats her, she can kind of elevate her name a little bit. And then we're putting, some of these fights, we're going to do a big fight night card with Grasso versus Shevchenko, 2 at the top. And if Grasso wins, her name elevates even more. And especially, in the market of Mexico, she's going to grow her fan base even more. And I really do believe the UFC is kind of making a conscious effort to invest more in women's MMA and attempt to build these divisions and make some of these key matchups that we need to see rather than just kind of slopping matchups together and like, okay, next contender up that doesn't even deserve a title shot. Let's give him a title shot and sacrifice him to the dominant champion. I think there's a conscious effort here to attempt to get fans interested in elite women's MMA fights because people have kind of soured on it, myself included, over the past few years. And I think that's what they're doing here. These are 3 great fights. Can't wait for all of them. Alex Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko too. Great storyline. Rose Namajunas versus Manon Fiorot. Great fight. Looking forward to that, even though it's kind of weird. And Taila Santos versus Erin Blanchfield. Incredible matchup. Let me know who you're picking in all 3 of these fights. Comment your predictions down below. Let me know which order you're most excited for, order these fights, and how you were interested in them. I would greatly appreciate it down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.